12 News Eye on Agriculture with Britton Rucker.
This week, a massive wildfire tore through parts of Texas, consuming over 1 million acres with farms and ranches in its path. The latest numbers we're getting from Texas as the death toll from livestock continues to climb. And as the weather ramps up, so do things on the farm. Things you need to be doing now to make sure you stay safe later on the farm with yourself and your family. And the latest on the new farm bill, as the Senate Agriculture Chairwoman says she would delay the new bill. Why and what she wants instead. Good evening and welcome to Eye on Agriculture. I'm Britton Rucker. This week, a massive wildfire tore through parts of Texas and Oklahoma, killing tens of thousands of cattle. Smokehouse Fire quickly became the largest wildfire in the state's history, consuming over 1 million acres, with farms and ranches in its path. Now, towering columns of smoke approached an 80,000-acre ranch outside of Stinnett, Texas on Tuesday, where employees stayed behind to move cattle out of the path. They cut fences and unfortunately had to get out due to firefighters having to go save communities. Ranch workers had no time to evacuate livestock as the rapidly growing Smokehouse Creek fire tore towards them. Video shows a group of cattle running in the opposite direction of the fire as they trampled over brittle dry grass that served as fuel for the wildfire. Meanwhile, those fires made their way up to Oklahoma. Ellis County saw horrible wildfires on Tuesday. While smaller fires have popped up, the Oklahoma Forest Service says they are contained. Ranchers in the area had to move out their cattle because the land wasn't able to hold livestock, as you're seeing right here. Our sister station reports seeing pastures full of livestock that died in those fires. An Ellis County veterinarian was also out on Wednesday working on cattle to see if they were healthy or not. He estimated that 250 head or more of livestock died. He also said he expects that number to increase throughout the next couple of days. Kansans are stepping up to help those dealing with those massive wildfires in Oklahoma. As we mentioned, this week those wildfires have burned tens of thousands of acres in Oklahoma, leading to evacuations of several towns. In 2017, areas of southwest Kansas were hit by similar fires, so people in that area organized locations to collect supplies in hopes of transporting them to those in need.
I think that once you've lived it and experienced it, you just find it important that you've got to help out as people helped us out back when we experienced the same situation.
If we can get a giant convoy to go down there with hay and donations of any sort, I think it'd be all right. We represent Kansas pretty good in all we do in situations like this.
Organizers gathered as many people as they could and took them down to Gage, Oklahoma, Saturday morning. Here at home, nothing of the like they saw in Texas, but a grass fire burned down a home in southwest Kansas. These images from Kearney County shows just how destructive that fire was. Crews from Kearney County, Stanton County, and Garden City battled the blaze along with farmers in the area. Crews eventually extinguished the blaze, but not before it burned down that home. Health officials warning you about prescribed burns and the health effects. KDHE advises you that March and April brings prescribed burns across the Sunflower State. The use of prescribed burns can release the larger amounts of pollutants that form at ground level that can be harmful to you. As you see burns and smoke in your area, limit or avoid strenuous outdoor activity. Close your doors and windows and run your air conditioner with the air filters to maintain clean air. Also, make sure you're staying hydrated and look for symptoms like chest pain, tightness, or fatigue. The latest on the new farm bill, Senate Agriculture Chairwoman Debbie Stabenow says she would delay the new farm bill, already 5 months overdue, to 2025 rather than accept cuts. Leaders of the Senate and House Agriculture committees have been at an impasse for months in disputes over crop subsidy spending, SNAP, and climate funds.
That's part of farming is, we know that there's going to be extremes and things are going to happen.
As temperatures quickly drop this week, local farmers concerned as the cold snap could freeze some of their crops. Coming up on Eye on Agriculture, hear about their concerns and what they're doing to prepare.